बोला सर.
Good evening. I welcome today's speaker, Dr. Gajanan Sabnis, and all the people in the audience. Today is the 53rd lecture in the series of Vijnana Ganga Science series. This series is conducted by Yashwantrao Chavan Pratishthan Mumbai and Marathi Vignan Parishad since last more than 4 years. Many eminent scientists and technologists have delivered their lectures in the series, namely Professor Jayan Narlikar, Dr. Anil Kakodkar, Dr. Ranjan Kelkar, who is a meteorologist, and many more. Of late, due to Corona, we started this particular serial on Zoom app since May 2020. One advantage that we got since we are on the Zoom app, that we could request people located in foreign countries, namely last month only Professor Satish Desai delivered the lecture, and now Professor Gajanan Sabnis from America, he is delivering the lecture. So this is one advantage, that we could meet other people also other than India. Today, Dr. Gajanan Sabnis is going to give a lecture on technology. Now let us see what Dr. Gajanan Sabnis is. Dr. Gajanan Sabnis is infrastructure consultant in USA. He has a combined teaching, industrial and research experience of totaling to over 5 decades. He has 30 years of experience of rehabilitation.
Deshpande sir, let me take over. I'll take over from there.
Okay.
Yeah, please start my presentation.
Introduction nako?
No, I'll take care of that.
Oh, you will take care of that.
Okay. Dr. Sabnis, I want to congratulate you for this event. Although I couldn't understand that, it wasn't in English. This is Dr. Sayah, the Region 10 Director of ASCE.
Okay, so Deshpande sir, you can mute him now.
तर चालू केलं या presentation.
Yeah, okay, fine. Is everybody muted now? Okay.
Yeah, Dr. Sabnis, we are in.
You are not muted yet. Okay. Good morning to everybody. This is Gajanan Sabnis. Let me just make sure that you can. Vishwanath, can you make it the full screen?
There is a full screen, we can see.
Full screen is my.
Okay,
Hello.
very.
Hello.
Now, you are muted. Elias, you are muted now.
Well, they muted me and they stopped my video. I don't know.
No, I stopped it. Okay. All right. Good morning, good evening to all of you. Vishwanath, you can check the next slide. Okay, let me just see some. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Okay, again, good evening, good morning from my side. I've changed that first slide slightly here to call it technology, engineering, 50 years back and far. The only reason I've done that is because I know I'm talking to mostly scientists, but there are a few engineers. And 50 and 5 has something to do with my own career because more than 50 years have gone in this country. And before that, I was in India. And now in future 5 years, I'll be probably more in this country because of this COVID. We haven't made a trip yet to India. Next. Next. Okay, what I'm going to do is, we already heard some comments from Dr. Deshpande. I want to acknowledge Vishwanath, who is the key role in this, because he's the one who is making it work properly. And then I'm going to go to the next slide with my background and some introduction about myself. Next. Now, basically, my experience has been in two continents, India and the United States. And very briefly, I finished my engineering degree in 1961 with the gold medal and good stuff. And I got my master's also from IITB in 63. I did some consulting engineering practice up to 1964. And then PhD with a research fellowship. I spent 3 years there, learned a lot, and came back to India in 1967 with a research grant. And hopefully I thought with that 2 years money that I had, I could settle in India. And I tried with IIT, where I went to school for my master's, but I didn't have much luck. So then I decided it's the time to leave the country second time, 1968. And since then, I have had my career in research and development with American Cement Corporation. Then I was in consulting practice with Bechtel Corporation, which most of you know. And then I switched to academic because practice, I don't think I could make headway because of the glass ceiling that I hit in 1974. So 73 on, I started at George Washington University, University of Maryland, and I settled in Howard University for 33 years. And during that time, because we're a young community, we also provided our own community service, MKM, this is the local Marathi organization, BMM, which is the national organization, which started in about 1983. And while I was in academic, all of us have the same 24 hours. Management technology, techniques, and I own the company called KC Engineering from 1983 to 89. And I was active, and I'm still active in professional societies, which you heard from Dr. Saya, who is the International Director for Region 10, which includes India, Abu Dhabi, and the rest of the world outside of US and Canada. And the activities I have run with American Society of Civil Engineers, American Concrete Institute, Concrete Repair, and Pre-Stress Concrete. And I retired from Howard in 2006. Next. And then post 2006, I really didn't want a job, but they ended up giving me a job, Deloitte and Touche, from 2006 to 8. And they made me collaborate between the US, UAE, and India for essentially their infrastructure advisory service. And that was an interesting experience running with the financial community and not quite into engineering, but between the three countries, I learned a lot for those 2 years, which gave me something to do from 2008 on. And I said about that before 2009 on, now we have started living in both US and in India, 7 and 5 months. But this year, all 7 months have been in US and no India yet for 5 months. So we'll see where we go by end of this year. What I've really done is I mentor younger generations, and most of generations are younger that I meet. And I prefer younger meaning in the college, university, or who are doing PhD. And that helps me quite a bit to keep myself younger. Both that leads to sustainability, which has a totally different meaning from engineering perspective. But for all scientists and other people, sustainability means the continuation of life in a very positive way. Now, circular economy, which I'm just introducing that word to all of you, and perhaps some of you might know about it, is circular is again part of sustainability because you cannot afford to lose a lot of resources from, and therefore we try to reuse and recirculate the materials, no matter what it is, whether it's a financing, whether it's a technology, that brings some new development in the last couple of years have happened. And that's what I think we should be practicing as circular economy. I also provide advisory service to universities with lectures to structural firms and joint venture with US and India for a collaborative venture. I also write or edit new publications, both in English and Marathi, and I'll give you some examples of what I've done. And COVID-19 has slowed down, as Dr. Deshpande mentioned in the beginning. It has brought us together through this media of Zoom, but it has also created something else, that it has kept us apart now, that we don't want to see each other. Even Columbia, Maryland, where we live, we don't see anybody else because we quarantined ourselves for the last 4 or 5 months, but we see our friends even in the same town just by this Zoom, and it works out well, and maybe that will be our future practice. It also has initiated some new businesses that I'll talk to you about as we go along. Next. These are some of the things that I did while in the US, but I just want you to notice that from 1978, so it's not something that I started writing books or publications, but the first one that I had was in 1978, December. The same year our second daughter was born. And then I had a book on structural modeling, which is my specialty that I practice at Cornell in the research, came out as a book. And the last 2 books are the first and the second edition of Green Building, which is economy. And the second edition came in 2015. Both of these books are even available in India at a less price than in the US. Next. These are 2 books that I did in the last few years. First happens to be the book on greenhouse, which is the energy efficient home, probably the first of its kind in the United States, and for that matter, for the world, for ourselves, but is that all recycled materials and concrete, obviously, but it was a special concrete and there was no wood in this house at all. So everything that we did was recycled, energy efficient, and all that. Now we do not have that house because we live in an apartment that you can see in my background a little bit. And the second book that I did with my cousin, M.Y. Subnis, was also a chief engineer of municipal corporation and had he was the first one to initiate the concrete roads. And at the behest of Commissioner, Mr. Suktankar, he ended up writing a book, and I contributed to 5th and 6th editions of this book the last 5, 6 years to make this as more complete and as a US-oriented book as possible. Next. This is my contribution to social engineering, I call it. Engineers as we are, we keep away from other fields, but I don't like to do that because I try to introduce in myself there's something more than engineering in the world, and therefore I put the sociology or social sciences, and that's what I wrote this book, He Aplis Manse, which is in Marathi, but a lot of people do not read Marathi, so we ended up writing in English. The other 2 books are essentially something more related to community in US and in India. The whole idea of these books were to write the history of Indian people, and as a first shot, I did a Marathi book for Marathi people in this country because we're a much smaller community in about 40 years ago. Now it's maybe many more times. Next. Okay, that ends my little bit of background. And now we are going to jump into the actual topic that we have next. So let's look at the technology impact then, meaning when we were growing up, and now, and what will happen in the future. And I say that in 5 ways because I have really very much affinity for the number 5. And perhaps one might ask me a question, why 5? And to give some more stability to anything that we as engineer and scientists do as experiment, and anyone who has done experimental work, a minimum number of tests we do are 5. And that's for different reasons. I don't want to go into detail. And then I want to cover these 5 topics in today's presentation, how technology has affected us in 5 different ways. And I followed by what I did in the second part. And then we'll go on from there. So in family and self, we'll see what happens. Education and career, how we concentrate. Then we go up to technology, and then how we change ourselves, and how the technology has affected not our lifestyle, but also the business practice. And finally, the 5th item would be retired life, such as what I have. But I go from self and the family. As you see, it starts with the family and self. When we're young, we're depending on our parents. And now we are self because you are the only one who can do something, and the family comes next, thus completing the full circle of our lifetime. Next. So technology impact on our engineers versus scientists experience. So let me just talk about myself as approach versus the other professions. And that's not something that I'm telling you new. Most of you are aware of it, because civil engineers approach is more inclusive, because we don't really get much input from others. We have to depend on our own initiative, intuition, knowledge to do our approach more successful. And why I'm saying that, because others, and there are other professions, medical profession, especially in the last 50 years, what I've seen is before, when we grew up as young kids, all we did was one family doctor we knew. Now today, if you go to family doctor, he doesn't do anything, he or she. He refers you to somebody else, and somebody else, and somebody else. So we keep on going through a circle, and when everything is given to our family practitioner, then she makes the decision. Yeah, I think it's good. Legal is the same thing. In legal profession, well, I used to tell that to my students, that legal profession creates a job for 3 people. We never do that in civil engineering or even in engineering. Because when you have a problem, you go to lawyer. And because somebody else sues you, so you go to another lawyer. And both of those lawyers end up to going to judge for 3 people's job. Now that it's something else that we don't do in civil engineering. And science obviously also depends on many, because science is an abstract field compared to engineering, which is applied field. And engineering and science, they always go together. Always like to talk about science, including maths, which was always my favorite, even today it is. And I just enjoy, because mathematics is an exact science. You cannot say 2 plus 2 equal to 4 or other than 4. The only profession I know that does it, but I'm not going to say about that profession. So I remember a story of accountants. So when 2 accountants met and they talked about 2 plus 2 equal to 4, but the smart accountant told, hey, it doesn't matter what you want to be 2 plus 2. Whatever I tell you, whether 2 plus 2 is any other number, that you go with that. So their decisions depends on others' input, while engineers or civil engineers have our own. And what has done, this technology has affected our lifestyle to adapt to easier life. Now, which is good. Easier life is better, but at the same time, we cannot leave the basic lifestyle that we're born with, and the same thing as we'll end up with, because that lifestyle has to be something that you have to practice yourself. And by the end of this lecture, next. Okay, let's start from basic few things that we have faced in our life. And I'm going to start from education, because I was in education for a long time. Some of you might have been. So what has technology done in our education? Because technology is not impacting, it is impacting everything in our life. It's starting from the early days of KG or kindergarten. when we grew up, I don't think we had even kindergarten. We all were together in primary, early education, the same school we went to, and thereafter the middle school and the high school. But what the technology has done is what we used to learn from our teachers is no longer what we do today, because the technology has changed education. And what has changed? The delivery and the receiving education end. Because what we delivered 30, 40, 50 years ago, whether we received it or we delivered, I'm talking about myself as well as a professor. And today, what we talk to students, tremendously different delivery mode that we have, because they receive in a different fashion. And that's what 50 years of growth in technology has done. Meaning that when we learned from our professors, we just took it almost for a Bible, or whatever you want to call in your own way, that it was a gospel. And we depended on our professors because we just did not have the resources. It's substantially different progress. It just happened. It's not that somebody wanted to do it, but that's what the technology that we started with has done for our life. Next. So what did it do? That's what I want to bring it. So did it bring us together or took us apart? On one side, I would say it brought us together, and we're going to see some examples of that. It affects our life for good or bad. It all depends on how you look at it, because somebody might say, no, it has done something better. We have an easy life. But does that mean good? I think it has also brought some bad features in our life. Like, for example, talking from Mumbai or anywhere in the world, but look at what we used to have when I grew up, much smaller roads, we're, I think, happier, or we're not, but it depends on how you look at it yourself. Did it bring the world together? I would like to say yes, but it has also split us apart, because everybody is thinking his own way, in the sense that we're not talking together, we're talking independently. It's good and bad. And let's see what has happened this year, because COVID came and it really topsy-turvied our life, in saying that most good part of it, because bad part we can see either politically, geopolitically in different countries, but I want to take it from a different perspective with me. So just join me for the next few slides. Next. One of the things that hard times have done in our technology is it not only brought us globally together, but some of the top companies started during this recession. It's one of the presentations I had a couple of months ago, and it has nothing to do with engineering. It was just talking about the future. What should be the future and all that. And he gave this slide. It was very interesting one to see that top companies today that we talk about started during a recession. For example, Walt Disney started in 1923-24 recession. HP Corporation started in 1938 depression. Microsoft, as we know today, started in 1975 recession. Some of you may not even know about it, but that was the when we had the oil embargo, and I'm talking from the United States perspective, that we used to stand in line, just like what you often do in India, Mumbai. So we have stood in line for at least an hour to get a gas, which was like 10 gallons we could get, and 10 gallons is nothing for our US driving, but that's all we could get every day or every other day. Then CNN, the cable news network that we know of today, was started in 1980s recession. And finally, the FedEx also started in 1973 recession. So again, David Oakley's presentation, I got this from that resource, is they give this 5 or 6 corporations. So they started in the recession. Think positively in today's COVID days and see what we can do for the next few things. Next. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, go to the next slide. Okay, this is the book that I would recommend if you find it on Google. The book, it says Create the Future, Tactics for Disruptive Thinking. And Jeremy Gucci is a great thinker. He's the CEO of Trend Hunter, and I'll show you the next slide also for that. But he is talking about innovating through chaos. And it's not something bad, one might think about it, but you should take a look at the book, even if you take a look at the cover of that book. It's a flip cover. On two sides, there are two different books in the same. Next. Okay. Now, here is what I want to share with you is in terms of technology progress, what has done for almost 100 years or more than 100 years, and it has no longer a straight line. And that's what the technology has done in the last 50 years. Although I don't need to go back to 1900, but that's a slide that I got from that particular book. So I want to show you in the sense that the technological progress we're making is much faster than what it was 50 years ago, and it's going to be even faster. And all these trend hunters implied pace of image is saying that think about it, and if you think ahead for what's going to expect in 2025, 2030, then only you can make the right progress in technology to make our life better today. Next. And this is just showing the different technologies that happened in the last 100 years. And again, looking from the first one to the second one to the third one, you can see the computer, you can see the television that I used to have, almost identical TV in 1968. I also had the typewriter, which was electric, but this is not electric typewriter. Then look at phone has changed into the smaller phone, and now the last one is like an iPhone in 2015. What computer we had in the past and computer we have today is a tremendous difference, because I still remember in 63 or 62, when I used the computer for my master's thesis in India, that was in the way south end of the town, and I used to live in north end of the town. So after going for about 2 minutes time on the computer, which took the whole room, compared to what this computer that you see today or the iPhone has more capacity than that one. Next. Okay, so we're going to talk about a few examples in our lifetime, what we see. So what did technology do? Just a few examples. For example, mailing letters. So we used to mail letters to communicate. And I'm talking about when I came to the United States the first time in 1964. We don't do that anymore because we send the messages directly. We pick up a phone and call, which is hardly any cost. I remember the AT&T old phone that when I came to this country, it used to call $2 per minute in 1965. You think I was rich enough to call at that time? No chance. And compared to what it is cost in 2005, and now that we have internet or WhatsApp and all that, and we can call pretty much free. So you can imagine from $2 a minute, when the dollar that time must be today almost like $500 per minute, which nobody could afford even today. And that's what we did, and that's what technology has done. So in a way, it has done a lot of good things. We cannot just scoff at the technology that we have done, but we must properly do something with it to learn and go forward. So television was black and white in 1965. If we tell our children black and white TV, probably they won't even understand what that means, because now it's not only color, it's a much finer color TV in 2015 or even 2020. What we have is a smart TV, which can connect to anything that you want, and you can watch everything in a big image. And computer, as I mentioned earlier, is in a large room in southeast of Mumbai. So now it is handheld phone which serves all your needs and a lot more. Next. Look at another aspect of this technology, what we have done. Air travel. Now, my first trip in India was from Mumbai to Port Blair in Andamans. When I worked for Indian Oil Company, explore the oil installation in Andamans, which I'm sure most of you from India know where it is. It's in the Bay of Bengal, but we could not go from Chennai to there. So I went from Mumbai to Nagpur, Nagpur to Calcutta, Calcutta to Rangoon, and Rangoon to Port Blair. And that took me almost 18 hours to go. And it took my 3 stops. And I did the same thing coming back. And I was there only for 1 day to finish my report. So that was the initial, my air travel ever in my life. And now compare that to what we did the last trip. We came from Mumbai in March. That was a non-stop from Mumbai to JFK and then to Baltimore. But look at what has happened in these last few years, that we travel non-stop from Mumbai to any part of this country in the United States, New York, Washington, DC, Atlanta, Chicago, and San Francisco. And the same is between other 2 countries also, but at least from our perspective, from the India and the US, now we can do that on non-stop basis. Now, what is the next step? It's space travel. We are already starting to do that. At 10 times more speed to moon is almost here. But again, looking back and looking forward, do we really need to go that we live in more sustainable and more useful for future generations to live? Next. Now, technology has also done our lifetime in the business ways. For example, it changed since 1980. I'm putting that simply because when we started our company the first time in 1983 or 84, we used to work with basically the mail. From mail, we moved, and telex went to fax, and now we have direct paperless transmission between the 2 countries. Also in a real time. So we don't have to wait for a day or 2 to get the mail back and so on. Technology also helped us start business between the countries and individuals across the ocean transmitting the information freely and efficiently. What we're talking about is that technology has made us much smarter, but should not be that extra smart to make sure that we appreciate what technology has done for us and we follow it in a religious way to make our own benefits out of that. Next. Okay, it changed business ways also. During the hard time like now, previous downtimes, as I mentioned, businesses started as people thought of brighter future, because it always does better if you think ahead of other people. When I worked for Deloitte and Touche, the first day we had training session, no matter what position I had to go through 1 day of training with Deloitte. And what they told us was very simple. And I appreciated that even after all my life, you do not try to follow because somebody has done it, let me do the same thing. Then you're always going to fall behind because you're not the leader. And that's something very important that us to appreciate. And what has COVID-19 done to damage to our lives? I think it has done some damage. Now, perhaps not because of ourselves. We don't have the vaccine. We have to take care of ourselves. We do that very much, but it has also given us time to think for future businesses internationally. Now, when I'm saying that, there are few key words there. Time to think. Because I just saw yesterday's magazine that I got with Fortune, and it says, top leaders are saying, we're giving 1 week. The Microsoft genius, he said, no, I give 1 week a year for my own thinking. Just a few minutes. I give myself, when I take a walk without doing anything, always think, that time is to think for myself as to what I can do efficiently in my remaining time. So that helps future businesses, both nationally and internationally. Next. So technology has changed business ways. My own example I'm going to give you, and not because I did something, but this is what I did in the last 1 year. I initiated 2 businesses, one for financing. Don't forget, technology is there, and that's the way old thinking was. Hey, I'm going to give you technology, so I want this. But it doesn't matter what technology you have. Now the way to think about is how is going to be finance my future advance in technology. And that's what we just did one. And the other was for futuristic e-publishing. Whatever I showed you the books, probably in the next few years, they will not be published at all. So it's going to be e-publishing. And then what we are trying to do is, no, we are going to work on this and create an e-publishing series. While the third one that we started in the hopper is for the future technology of converting household garbage to useful fuel energy. Now that's mainly European technology. It doesn't, you will see that we might have a base in US as well for something for taking the garbage. And the US, the problem is because we have so much land that a lot of that garbage goes into landfill, which is not a very good thing. In India, we have a problem in cities like Mumbai and Pune. And even where we live in Mumbai, we see the problem, but somehow we just haven't. So when we get this going in the US, I'm sure we'll come back to you in India to have that conversion into better energy source from household garbage. Next. One of the other examples that I can give you is we already initiated writing new books to publish in India, as well as a joint venture between the authors from India and the US. And at least we are hoping one is almost done, but I think I'm the one who got a little busier to finish the last touches. But I promise that we'll have this in October, November, but no later than 1st of December of this year. Next. So with my lifetime experience that I've done, also think together with the younger generations and collaborate with them, mainly from the college students with their brighter and futuristic idea to make them think of sustainability and infrastructure. I'm going to close with the next slide, which is basically of those 2 last items. Next. So what is a sustainable infrastructure? I think everything what you see around is part of our infrastructure, the building or the house you live in, the transportation that you have, the roads that you are, is make sure we should leave this world a more livable space for our future generation. And that's all the sustainability and infrastructure is. Hopefully we can follow that. And the specific comments I want to mention is about American Society of Civil Engineers, because of course it's an engineering society and how it can help in this respect to other countries. And some of you who might be listening to this, if you know your engineering, civil engineering sons, daughters, please communicate with me. And I think we can take the next step as needed. Next. And that pretty much finishes my presentation. So the next slide. If there are some questions, but I don't think we can have some questions right now. So I'll go to the next slide, which is the summary. So my summary and conclusions are as follows. What did I learn in my own lifetime? And that's all I try to present to you with my example, but how it followed the technology to me from my childhood to where we are now. Life is what it is. Now, I'm not going to sit back and say, because of this pandemic, I cannot leave home and all that, but I must ensure that how to make the best out of it. Hardships are always there. I don't think anybody of us will say that, no, my life was easy. Maybe so. We have to overcome those and see where we go from there. And that's where I give some slides of my own experience and to share and learn from. Even today I do that, simply because the younger generations, I learn from them, and I was with them all my life with the students. I still have my students from Howard who graduated in 75, 76. 40 years ago, they still call me and Dr. Sabnis, can I talk to you? And I know that it's something good that will come out of that. So when you talk about over COVID-19, overcome it in your own way. What you do is your own way. I'm not going to tell you what to do. Think about yourself at least for a short time daily, which I do a lot, not because I force myself, it just becomes a practice for yourself. And I hope you found all this to be useful and encouraging. And I think that's my last. Let's see one more thing for closing. Next.
Yeah.
Okay, these are my details in case somebody wants to get in touch with me. I have my email at the bottom, my phone in the middle in the US. The phone in India obviously doesn't work while I'm here. So you have to depend on the email and my phone number in the US. Thank you so much for your attention. And I think next one is for Dr. Deshpande's slide.
It open to audience to ask questions to Dr. Sabnis.
Satish wanted to ask something. I saw his face.
Satish Desai?
Maybe not.
Paralkar wants to ask something. Paralkar?
You have to unmute him.
Hello. Hello, Dr. Sabnis. I want to thank you for a very nice presentation on behalf of American Society of Civil Engineers. And I want to thank all the participants for their patience and listening to great information. And I hope to see everyone soon.
Well, Dr. Sabnis, Paralkar had asked one question.
Okay.
Whether COVID has given a lead to new technology, or is it a product of new technology? A new perspective.
So it's a product of new technology. What does that mean?
That means it will give a lead to new technology.
Well, new technology is something what you think about yourself. The technology is there. What you pick up from that technology is your own brain and your own thinking. No, I think you're right. Technology is not new. Technology is there. Whether you part.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I will give you one example. Now, my
Yes.
brothers and sisters and their children, they are spread all over the world.
Yeah.
And we were dependent only when some occasion is there to meet them, like marriages and all that. But in May month and June month, we did one experiment that all 8 Sundays, we decided some time and everyone came on Zoom, and on one pre-decided topic, everyone had a discussion or the presentation what exactly he does in his professional life. Now this is the technology that brought us together, which otherwise would not have been possible.
Yes, I agree. And that's good. In fact, we are trying that in our own generation in the US. My 2 brothers, with 3 of us live here, and we still cannot get 3 brothers and their families once a year. So when we are gone, I don't know how next generation will react to themselves, whether this technology has brought them together apart. We don't know. We'll just leave it to that generation. But what you said is, no, you're absolutely right. This new technology has brought us together, but it depends on how you use it. I personally like to meet together rather than by this Zoom, because you have to find some time. We did find time 50 years ago, and there's nothing that we don't have time. When somebody says, I don't have a time, every one of us has the same 24 hours. It all depends on how you keep them separate. So I cannot tell you I'm so busy that I cannot answer your question or I cannot see you. But I don't want to see you. That's the main problem. So if I want to see you, I'll see you like this, which is fine. If you like it, it's okay. But I don't like it personally. I would like to see something.
Well, what you say is correct, that meeting personally have different affiliation. Once
Yes.
it is not possible, at least with this particular media, we can continue our own business. For example, my friend's wife, she's a singer. She continues her classes on Zoom with different cities in Maharashtra state. So she continues her profession like this.
Work. Yeah, no, I think I agree. Anything bad, and that's what she has already done it, which I really appreciate. And that's what will happen in the future also, that we are going to do more and more with this technology, except that I'm not too sure whether it's going to be us bringing us together or bringing us, keeping us apart. Anyway, it depends on individual interpretation. So I'm not going to say too much about it. Thank you.
Second thing is that time difference between USA and India and likewise has also helped that the medical tests are done in USA and those reports are sent in your evening. They reach to us, which is our morning, and then throughout the day, our people work on that and give the medical advice, and by our evening, they are sent to you. So you get almost next day the reports and results and diagnosis on that.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Yes, we have been doing it for our engineering business. And that's what has brought the world together. You are absolutely correct. And I just gave you that example of air travel. We don't need to have that expensive air travel. And technology has brought us together, having an office in Mumbai or in Washington together. When we sleep, you work. And when you sleep, we work. So it works out in extremely very good way to do that.
But what do you see the future, the schooling that we had, the cultural programs that we had coming together and all that, is becoming the history or already has become the history?
Well, I think now we are hitting a very, very weak link in this series, because when you talk about cultural programs, it's as good as seeing the movie. So what's the difference between movie and the live play? And when I'm in Mumbai, I still like to go to Natak or the Marathi Natak that we can enjoy. And the big difference between the movie and the play is real. And sometimes I feel sorry. I've tried my own ways because we are like member of this society in Matunga. And all we try to do, Yashwant, there is Yashwant Theatre also there. And we became a part. And I said, how can these artists be left alone, whether the movie actors are making crores or crores of rupees, and the poor acting that he does for one evening or one day gets like few thousand rupees. I mean, that's nothing. So he should be paid in 2 more digits of that 5,000. And the movie actors, they played once and they're done. And all people are saying, oh, no, that was the big Amitabh Bachchan movie and Raj Kapoor movies, but that's gone. You talk about the real thing, what you said is correct. And I appreciate, because that's what the real life took. When you talk about cultural activities, I don't think this have much meaning for the movies. I still don't watch TV much. I don't watch movies, and not that because I don't like them. But again, you've seen that once. But if there is a natak, I would enjoy that because that's a live play. And when you talk about artists doing that over the period of years, that's called their own strength. Thank you.
Satish Desai, you want to ask anything? Yeah, please.
I didn't hear that.
You are mute. Satish Desai, you are mute.
Okay, now he's ready.
I think you can hear me now. Huh?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
My problem is that science development is all very well, but I don't think the science is on its own quite able to make progress in the interest of humanity. Science can go astray, and as Pope John Paul II said, faith and science have to go together. And I find in many places, science has taken the wrong turn perhaps. And faith without science is blind, no doubt, but science without faith is lame. You will forgive me by saying so, but in America, I find a glorious absence of faith in your leaders, at least. You and some other people might have good background and are doing fine work for all the people, for the good of all people. But those with science and without faith are not exactly beneficial to the humanity.
So did you say science and faith? Faith.
Faith.
Oh.
F-A-I-T-H.
Faith.
F-A-I-T-H. T for Tom, H for happy. Yeah.
Faith.
Faith, no, faith.
I could hear that very clearly. Deshpande, can you please say that again if I can hear?
Science and faith.
Science and hope.
Faith.
Faith.
F-A-I-T-H. Faith.
Well, maybe I'm interpreting something wrong, but yes,
You can read the chat if you can.
I don't know where I can read anything.
You got the chat button? No?
Okay, I think let me put my interpretation. I think Satish, if I may be excused, you're saying the science is always there with us, and we must have some faith in something that we are doing. And I think I agree with you if that's the right way that I'm interpreting, because faith is something that you develop internally for yourself. And
Exactly.
whether you, I'm sorry? Oh, I thought somebody was saying. So,
No, I think you're on the right track. Yeah, thank you.
okay, I think what I'm simply referring to is I have good, and that's what I call faith, because, and now I don't want to get into politics also, but I don't think we need to get into politics because that gets into something else that we don't have a control about, and we won't talk about it. But what you said is correct. It's not only the science, engineering, because both you and I have the engineer's image of it. I know you and I worked in concrete most of our life, so that's our life. But now I think I take a little bit further, that getting away from that basic thing that we started about 50, 60 years ago, and where we are, is we have to make that progress into a different way for our future generations. And that's all I'm looking at, nothing more than that. Thank you.
Kale Sahib, you want to ask anything?
No.
No.
Uh-oh.
Vivek Patkar?
I didn't hear the question.
Dr. Patkar, you want to ask anything?
Oh.
Yeah, I will just like to know that how do you see in next, even say 10 years, engineering, technology and science will be delivering something which can be proud of?
Well, why next 10 years? I'm talking about next 5 years or even today. When you look back and then try to project it forward, it's you who is going to interpret that. I don't think what I say and what you say will matter at all. It's because somebody else is thinking ahead of you what the technology and science will give us in the next 10 years. So if you think about it before somebody else did, then I think not only you will enjoy it, but you'll make others enjoy as well. And they don't have to do any big contribution. Look around where you are and then see what you can change. And if you can change even your own surroundings in your own way, then I think everybody will benefit from that. You will benefit, and obviously other people will follow that too. Satish has his hand up. Yeah, go ahead, Satish.
Yes, Satish.
May I say something that I know about you? You are a scientist and a very learned person, but what I admire in you is that some time ago I heard you have developed some method of doing good the potholes in roads. I think that is one of the most essential things, at least where I live and also in India. If you have developed a method, you have really done some excellent work for the society. Thank you.
Well, it's not something what I did or anybody else did. Everybody has exactly the same thinking, but perhaps they restrict themselves not to think about it. And when I say I do something for society, I'm doing it for myself, really, for my own benefit. Because I feel if I cannot do that for myself, then something is wrong with me. And for that, I don't need to blame others or talk others. And if that helps others, so be it. If somebody says that doesn't like experience, if somebody doesn't like it, doesn't mean that we have done something bad to him. There's some difference of opinion. So that's okay. I just let go. I don't even think second time, oh no, I should go after him and convince him why I should do that. And that's it. We're done with that. And that's why I think maybe the teaching professions told me the all life, because I would never tell a student you're wrong. I just have to tell him if he thinks differently, then how it would benefit him. Because if I'm teaching concrete to him or the structural engineering, it's there. Whether I teach him or he finds it out in his own way, it's okay. But all I was telling all my students also, and that's why many students are still together with me or they talk to me. Thank you. Satish, more?
No, all I meant to say is that many years ago when we met, you had devised a very good system of repairing potholes. And I admired it so much that a person of your intellect can come down so much to do some simple things in a very effective manner. So I meant to pay compliments to you for your work that is downside useful. Thank you.
Thank you again, Satish.
Yeah. Prakash Savarkar, you want to ask anything? Savarkar? No. Dr. Ravindra? Anyone else want to ask before I start concluding?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Aaron Fuller. Thank you, sir, Dr. Sadmus, for your nice presentation. I have a question. How can we use ASCE as a platform or tool to initiate and start sustainable businesses that focus on a circular economy within the U.S., given the different rules, laws, and practices throughout the different regions and states in the U.S.? So how can ASCE be a bridge and a tool to use to get one ideal initiated in the U.S. that's beneficial for the entire country and enroll and have everyone see the value in moving forward with it in their own way?
By the way, for benefit of everybody else, this is my student who graduated in the 90s in Harvard. They went to another university, got his master's, and presently is in Stuttgart in Germany with his PhD. He's finishing it, and he wants to come back as a US citizen, as a good citizen after about 12 to 15 years. So Aaron, thank you for that comment. But I don't know whether we really need ASC. That's a good way to think about it. Both of us are civil engineers. Why one with civil engineers? We'll talk to other societies also, which I will. And I think I'm glad you mentioned ASC because I think Saya was probably stepped out. I wish he had learned that or heard that from you. But I'll send a message to him, and you can also send it to him, that he is the regional director for ASC all over the world. So let him also take that. He has a board meeting coming up in another 10 days. So he can bring it up, that there is technology or technologies like this, which one of our members has it in Germany or in Europe. So how can we bring it to US, and let him also do that legwork as an officer of the society. But I'll do it my way between you and I. I think we have a lot of common grounds that we are going to cover for this energy efficiency and removing of garbage and making into green buildings or green structures in the US. Thanks, Aaron.
All right. Thank you, sir. You're welcome.
Okay, let me start concluding. Thank you, Dr. Sabnis. You have taken us to last 50 years, and through your own experience, through your own life, as Mahatma Gandhi used to say, that my life is an open book. So your life appears to be an open book because you told us how the technology has progressed in different fields during past 50 years. And that reminded us also about the entire change in our life. Now technology is constantly changing, constantly progressing, whether for the benefit or the benefit. Now one has to see that how we can make a use of it. Thank you once again. Now next month we will have a lecture, that is 54th lecture of Dr. Ashutosh Kotwal, who is working as a scientist in NASA. His subject will be Beyond the Higgs Boson, the origin of matter, dark matter, and the collider after Large Hadron Collider. This lecture will be on 4th Friday, 27th November 2020, again at 5 p.m. Every one of you are requested to join us. One day beforehand, we will be sending you the Zoom link, but before that, you have to register your name with YB Chavan Center's mail. Thank you once again to Dr. Sabnis and the audience. Good day.
Thank you so much.